we're back.
To the Goblin Squad.
It's Brooke.
And Sarah.
What up?
Hey. Guess what episode it is?
50!
The 50th episode.
It's gonna be me. Sorry. Wow, I had to. I'm getting out all the awkwardness.
Yeah, it's always at the beginning of every episode, as if we have not recorded 49 previous episodes.
Literally, quite hundreds of hours.
Yeah.
Of recording.
Of this.
And
Weirdness.
It's still really fun.
It is really fun.
I like it a lot.
It's going to be a banger today, too.
Oh, yeah.
I'm so excited.
And this came up randomly, but
It
then
was
we were both just like, let's do it.
Forget the other episode. We're doing this.
I had like two other things we were talking about to combine.
Which were great.
And I
Don't
think,
get us wrong.
oh, they'll come up again.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
sure.
It just got completely hijacked by this evening's topic.
Which is?
Mummies.
Oh, my God. I'm so excited.
Mummies. The way, I don't know how we haven't talked about mummies before.
We've talked
now.
about talking about it, but it
Mummy Inception.
like off air as an idea, but it just, I feel like the wanton need to do it finally was
It all came together.
the time is nigh.
It's now.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's the awkwardness.
And I'm like, yeah, shake it out.
You just remember, Gobs, even if you've recorded 49 episodes, you can still feel weird
You can.
sitting with a person that you've said insane things to and like spent time in the woods finding random skulls and looking at pelicans. And we were reminiscing today about like the adventures we've had. And
I know, because I was going through the pod's Instagram and I was like, look at the things.
look at everything we've done.
We've done things.
Mhm.
Yeah. And we're just going to do more
So much more.
because it's getting warm outside.
I'm so glad. Because we're recording this. It won't drop on this day, but it's May 1st.
What up?
Beltane.
Blessed Beltane.
Thank you.
To the homies.
To everyone.
Yeah, and it can, in its own way, go and get the rebirth with our mummy theme in some things I'll discuss.
It's going to be a haunted... strap in, everybody, because
prepare.
we're going to talk right up front, up top.
Yeah.
Letting everybody know. Death is involved in this conversation. Mummies, dead bodies,
Misuse.
medical cannibalism.
Ethically, yep.
Yep.
Victorian England.
So that sums it up. That's just a giant Victorian Europe trigger warning.
It's been the vibe as of late. We've been very into...
Been fascinated with it. I blame the books you've been
You
reading.
have been fully just literally back in time.
I did just finish Shadow of Night.
Mm-hmm.
Shout out. That's a long-ass book.
Yeah.
That's very long, but very good.
Are you excited to start the
Yes.
last one?
I almost started it on my way over here, and I was like, no. You got to be in the right
Gotta give it
headspace.
time. Yeah.
Let it settle.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But it is so good.
Yeah.
You're going to
it's
like
a
it. I'm
great.
excited to...
Yeah.
hear what
So
you think.
once again, shout out All Souls Trilogy
Absolutely.
plus book 4, which I
haven't even read that one.
no. I don't. Is it a continuation or is it a prequel? Post.
I
Whatever?
think it's both.
Okay.
Where it goes back... I can't even... What's his son's name? His research student?
Marcus.
Marcus.
Yeah.
It's his tale with his gal.
Oh, Marcus and Phoebe.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like when they meet and
Yeah.
like that time period on. I
Yeah.
believe so.
Because they do a lot of jump cutting around
Yeah.
in book 2 where like big things happen and you have no idea how it got to that point, but you don't really need to know that in order to enjoy the situation.
Yeah.
So I appreciated that about the writing. I was like, oh, this is nice. You just like...
You've been making me want to go back and reread those
It's
books.
worth it. If it's been a while, I would do it. Because they're really good.
They're great.
They are.
I'm so awkward. Why am I
Broken post. Cut this. You're gonna be
cut it.
fine. Get it together. What's wrong?
Literally nothing.
Okay.
I don't know why. Joel said this before he
you've
left the
been
house. He's
looking-
like, what's wrong with you?
You've been looking at me very intensely the entire night. Like all through dinner, you were like, And you weren't blinking, and I was, in my head, I was like, I think she's fine, but I can't tell. I'm like, she's either going to cry or nothing is wrong. And I don't know.
I'm not cry or sad. I don't know why.
It's okay. She's freaking out about something, but we don't know what it is.
I don't know. I think I've had like busy brain while people are talking at me today, and that's probably me like thinking about what you're saying, but also thinking about what's going on in my head while I'm looking at you. So I'm like, hello.
I do feel like multiple layers of things are running at the same time.
Yeah.
So it's all right. Broken post, just cut all that.
Ha ha.
And we're back.
We're back. So would you like, as I'm going through my awkwardness, to start us off?
Let's get into it
with some stuff.
Okay, so
I feel like you're gonna start at a point before I will.
I think I'm gonna start fairly early in this whole mummy situation.
Yes.
So I'm going to give a little goblin-y, like, little Sarah backstory here.
Okay.
So I think most goblins at some point in their lives go through either an Egypt phase or a mummy phase or like a I have my own cartouche of my name phase, like we all do. And I have a very vivid memory of the first time I saw a real mummy. And I was in girls...
in person?
Yeah. Yeah. So, have you seen a mummy?
No.
Oh, shit. Yeah.
I'm like,
I shouldn't have made an assumption that everyone has seen a mummy.
I haven't seen a mummy.
Okay, so.
Tell me all
go
about
back in time. I was a child.
Okay.
Yeah, I can't remember how old I was, but elementary school.
Mm-hmm.
And I was in Scouts. Okay. And we had a trip, and it was like a Scout lock-in type scenario.
Yeah.
And it was at the old Science Museum in the Twin Cities.
Okay.
And so we went down there and then like stayed overnight at a lock-in at the Science Museum. Yeah, and it was like the best for a nerd kid. You're like, this is amazing.
It's night at the museum.
Mm-hmm. And so we were at the Science Museum, and I had never been there before. And so we're going through everything, and pretty soon we get to the section of the Science Museum that at that time, I don't know what it's like now because I haven't been there for years since they moved.
Yeah.
They had an Egypt section where they had like miscellaneous things. And I don't know if they were part of the permanent collection or if they were on, touring exhibit or whatever. And I came around a corner, had no idea that there was going to be a full mummy, like in a glass case, visible to you. Like, there he was.
You were just
yeah, all mummied, but like no wrappings, just him, like
emo tap.
Yeah. In the case. And I was like, what is that? And I remember like just staring at it and coming to the realization that that is a person and that person lived forever ago and that I was looking at a person and then immediately spiraled into a child's existential crisis of like, but he's stuck in there. Like had a full freak out that night about how like, but that's not where he's supposed to be. Like I didn't even realize like what I was thinking about. Yeah, I was just like
immediately.
He's in there forever, like just in there in like weird suspended glass case animation for all of time. Like everybody's looking at him. And I remember as a kid being like, but when I'm dead, are people going to be staring at me like a raisin in a box? Like it was a whole thing. And I thought about it ceaselessly for weeks. Like his mummy.
You were haunted.
Yeah, his mummy face would pop into my head and I'd be like, I looked at this dude's face. Like, I didn't even know who he was. Like,
I don't know how you handled that as a child.
Oh, probably with some trauma. I don't, yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
I don't know if I could have.
Yeah, but
Damn.
I don't know if I'm assuming he's still there, but maybe not and we'll cover that later about why he may or may not still be there. Because I don't remember who it was. Like, I don't remember whose mummy I saw. And
crazy.
Yeah, and so I just have this very vivid, and I can just still see him, like, and what he looked like in the position he was in the glass case he was in the room he was in, and the whole thing.
Was he fully just like...
No, he was in a weird posture, too. Like get now with the knowledge that I have, it's very possible that he was part of, like, like just from the way that his body was positioned, that his grave had been looted or desecrated, or that he was found outside of his original situation, because he was not positioned in a way where you would be like, that's peaceful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, like
He's like, ah.
yeah, it was not. Yeah, and he was.
They were probably covering up some parts. That
Yeah,
maybe,
he was fully mummied, you know.
Yeah.
But it was just like the lack of understanding, and then the shock of seeing like a fully mummified human body, and just wrapping your head around that,
And then having to go to sleep.
Yeah.
In the vicinity.
in a room full of like 250 other Girl Scouts, which was
That's
weird.
a lot of Girl Scouts.
Yeah, it was. I just remember the giant hall that we all had to sleep in, and how I was laying on the floor the whole night because I wasn't a sleepover kid. I was this is not my bed. I will not be sleeping. Like, I was just laying there all night. Like, huh.
Oh, no.
Yeah, and the other weird thing that I vividly remember is that I couldn't wrap my head around the Olmec statue. And it was not a real Olmec statue. It was a replica.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember thinking, like, how I was fascinated by how big it was, and how, like, I couldn't figure out how it was real. And I was just a little kid. So I was just, like, my first exposure to the history of the world, right? And was like, what else is going on out there that I don't know? And I just laid there all night in this room full of strangers, like, mummies, giant stone statues. I know nothing. Like, just laying on the ground. But
the teacher's like checking the kids. You're just lying.
Yeah. And so that was a thing.
Scout leader.
Yeah. And I just laid there all night, like Harry Potter in the Great Hall.
That's what the first thing.
Yeah, that's exactly what the vibes were.
Let him dream.
Yeah. But it was all worth it because I had bought a science museum patch with a brontosaurus, now debunked as a dinosaur, but with their brontosaurus logo on it.
I'm sorry.
What? Oh yeah, some dinosaurs aren't real. So I don't remember which species, but the whole like long neck a brontosaurus. Pretty sure brontosauruses are not a thing. You want me to fact check that for you?
Like Bigfoot? No. What is wrong with my brain today?
Rat bastard.
The editing is gonna be fun. Littlefoot, like from Land Before Time.
Yeah.
Not Bigfoot.
Littlefoot.
Littlefoot.
Yeah, like
Because that's
like,
what that
the
is, right?
Brontosaurus as a species, I don't believe is a thing. Like, that was a dinosaur that was bones that were put together wrong. So we're gonna fact check this.
We will.
I've lost it. Brooke, I'm so sorry for you later when you have to go through and
It's my
edit
fault. I'm
this
being
shit.
weird.
I'm gonna fact check it. Yeah, so I'm gonna fact check this right now. Brontosauruses real dinosaurs. Okay, so a brontosaurus is a real dinosaur. It was reinstated, so I
Okay.
wasn't wrong.
Okay.
Just for the fact checking, it had been removed as a real dinosaur,
Okay.
and it was reinstated as a distinct genus separate from the Apatosaurus.
Okay.
So they thought for a while that there was no such thing as a Brontosaurus, and that was actually just an Apatosaurus. And they were like, JK.
it got Pluto.
Yeah, but they didn't figure this out until 2015.
Oh,
that
shit.
It was still really actually a dinosaur. So for
Damn.
like the early aughts,
Yeah.
it was not a dinosaur anymore. It was like Pluto, but they gave it back.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a real thing where like they're still figuring out that in Victorian Europe, as we will discuss, certain things were not put together correctly.
No.
But, you know, we thought
There was a lot
cyclopses
of
were real because mammoth skulls were being
Hamshacklery
discovered.
going on there.
That's why they thought cyclopses were real, because mammoth skulls.
Yeah.
So, you know,
That's what they look like. They got that big old
got a hole.
hole.
So, mummies, not really a thing, as it turns out, which I thought people had seen them. I don't know why I assumed that. That was one of those
My
things.
scout troop had like 10 people in it, and we went camping a couple times and
Yeah.
made a lot of arts and crafts.
Yeah.
Visors
Visors, yeah.
with puff paint.
Neckerchiefs.
S'mores.
Yeah. We did some of that, too.
Yeah.
Yeah. But apparently mine also included a haunted encounter with
I would have loved
a mummy.
that.
It was actually pretty
Probably
great.
been scared, but like would have thought that was cool as shit.
Well, and the
Because
result...
I went to that science museum.
Yeah.
But
So
I never saw
you
a mummy
didn't see
there.
a mummy.
No.
So as a result...
Not that I can recall anyway.
Did you go to the
consciously.
old science museum or
Yeah.
the new one?
I think it was the old one.
Okay.
And like time-wise, it would have been like younger. I don't know what they...
I don't know when they
redid
moved.
it. Yeah.
But as a result of that, I became fascinated with the concept of Egypt, like a lot of kids do, and the idea of like hieroglyphs and the cartouche and like how would I write my name, having no understanding of how hieroglyphs work. So I was like, I'm a falcon and an owl and a worm and a snail, and then that says Sarah, like that. No, it doesn't.
It means something insane.
I don't know what the slug meant, but I was sure it was in my name.
You felt it.
I felt it in my soul. So mummies aren't a new thing as far as people's fascination, and I think that many of us of a certain generation fell in love with a certain mummy, Imhotep. From the cinematic masterpiece, 1999's movie, The Mummy, starring Brendan Fraser and Rachel Weisz. And that kind of like lore of the mummy illustrates perfectly like the tropes and the ideas and the modern beliefs and understanding that have led to the stereotypical view of a mummy, which is, a human body wrapped in bandages.
Yep.
Thank you, Scooby-Doo.
Oh, Scooby-Doo.
That, wanders around. But this all started in a very specific place for Western society. So,
which was?
We're going to skip. Now, remember, mummies can be found all over the planet. There are mummies in South America. There are mummies in different Asian countries. There are mummies in a variety of cultures from all over the world. We are going to focus, I think, most specifically on Egyptian mummies.
Yes.
And so we're going to talk about the historic context of where these mummies, like, essentially became icons of Victorian Europe, and the ramifications and weird ass shit that people did with these mummies.
So weird.
So weird.
Being alive during that time must have been
wild,
bonkers.
Because how did you navigate the bizarre and extremely constrictive social norms, but also you like, give me that mummy. Let me drink that mummy. What?
Put it in my tea in a powdered little concoction.
Yeah. So, we're going to talk about a fascinating phenomenon known as Egyptomania, which sounds like something we just made up now, but no.
No, it's not.
No.
No.
The Victorian era mummy craze actually has its roots earlier. Mm-hmm. And it starts out with good old Napoleon. Napoleon Bonaparte. And he waged what was called the Egyptian campaign in 1798 to about 1801.
Yeah.
And this invasion of Egypt, and I have many notes, so don't mind the rustling. There's going to be much rustling. His invasion of Egypt sparked Europe's and Europeans' fascination with Egypt in general. And essentially, what was going on at the time is that Napoleon's invasion of Egypt was an attempt to undermine British dominance in the region and basically subvert British trade lines and connections with the colonies that they had established in India. And so Napoleon essentially invaded Egypt, and this wasn't just like I'm bringing my army. This was like an epic multi-year expedition that also included hundreds of like researchers, historians, scientists, archaeologists, who were later given the label of savants that were attending.
Okay.
And all of these people were essentially coming in to basically like scorched earth remove whatever the French found interesting at the time. So during the process of this Egyptian campaign, there were several discoveries that were made by members of the basically like the research crew that came with, including one of the most famous, which is what led to this like massive rise in interest in Egypt, which was, of course, the Rosetta Stone.
Yes.
So for those that are unfamiliar, the Rosetta Stone is a large piece of stone that's like a granite adjacent type stone that was used in a lot of statues and a lot of carvings. And it was actually found by Jean-Francois Champollion. And no, I'm sorry. He translated it.
Okay.
But he didn't translate it. Yeah, he didn't translate it until many years after it was discovered. So it was discovered during the 1798 to 1801 campaign, but it wasn't translated until 1822.
Oh, damn.
And so it was actually discovered by, Pierre-François Bouchard, an engineer in the French army who was part of the Napoleonic expedition. And like a lot of things from the ancient world, as time progresses and history moves on and temples and structures and things are lost or destroyed, the building materials are not essentially left. They're reused.
Yeah.
And so the Rosetta Stone was found in a wall of a fort. And it had just been like, yep, we got a rock. Bye-bye. And they put it in.
It fits.
Yep. And the question here is, like, if the French discovered the Rosetta Stone, how did the Rosetta Stone, which contained 3 essentially different languages, which allowed for the translation of hieroglyphics? Because on the Rosetta Stone were hieroglyphics, and I'm going to say many words wrong in this episode. Feel free to judge me. Judge all the way.
Also same.
Yeah. Demotic or Demotic, which is the common Egyptian script of the time.
Okay.
And Ancient Greek, which was the only language that was still actively understood at the time of the stone's discovery. So because the same passage, for whatever reason, was repeated in 3 different languages, because they could translate the Ancient Greek, they could then reverse engineer it. So it went from, we have the Greek, we know what that means, to we're going to translate the Demotic. And then finally, through Jean-François Champollion, his work, they realized that hieroglyphs aren't actually letters. They are ideas and concepts and sound all mixed together. So, like, me as a child trying to spell out my name with hieroglyphics is not a thing you can do because it is not an alphabet in the sense of how we perceive an alphabet. Right. It is almost like a visual tonal language where, like, this image represents this sound, which represents this concept. So that is why it took
completely different.
Yes, that is why it took so many years for the translation to occur.
That almost seemed. Was it intentional? Do they think that all 3 languages were on there?
So that's something that I don't know, but it always gave me the vibes of, like, when you go to the DMV and everything is in multiple languages. Yeah. Like, I'm assuming it was
whoever's going to read this.
It was a decree for people to understand because it was the identical declaration in multiple languages. Boom, boom, boom. And the Rosetta Stone is incomplete. So it was broke. It was when it was found, it was broken.
Yeah.
And so there are chunks of the hieroglyphic section that are gone. However, that's not like a lost secret thing because the text is complete in the other passages. Okay. So they just basically extrapolated out of it what the hieroglyphs mean. But as a result of the translation of the Rosetta Stone, it opened up this entire world of understanding because the use of names in ancient Egypt were incredibly important, as we will discuss later on, to the continuation of the soul in the afterlife. As long as a name existed, the being existed. And so that's why a lot of times there are massive and elaborate inscriptions all over statues, sarcophagi, tombs, hallways, monuments, temples,
and everything. Yeah.
And so this translation allowed for all of that to be translated for the first time, which, as you can imagine, opened up an entire world. There was a fundamental lack of understanding as to lineages, dynasties, like all kinds of history that prior to this was just speculation.
Just guesswork.
Yes. Now, the French found the stone. How and why is the Rosetta Stone in the British Museum? To this day, by the way. So, too long didn't read. Napoleon failed. He did not succeed in his attempt to take over and disrupt the British influence in the region. And because of his loss, the British were actually able to, also involved with the help of the Ottoman Empire, which existed up until the 20th century. Yeah. They managed to beat back basically the French invasion and turn the tide on Napoleon. However, this access point from the discovery of the Rosetta Stone, the ability of British society to enter into Egypt, and the lack of any kind of oversight or involvement of the actual Egyptian people in the protection and preservation of their own history meant that all of Europe had essentially unfettered access, but especially Britain had unfettered access to all things Egypt. And they went to town. They went to town. So
they wanted it all.
They wanted it all. And oftentimes, I think when we think about like history, artifacts, things that went missing, things that appeared, the idea of curses, the idea of the romanticism of mummies and how mummification was done and what it was for, all of this came out of Egyptomania.
Yeah.
And that really took off in the mid to late 19th century, to the point where many, many, many unhinged things were done specifically with mummies.
Yeah.
Now, we're going to talk about some of those things.
Oh, yeah.
But before we do, I want to explain why people thought mummies had the mystical properties that they had. Did you do any research on mummia?
Yes.
Yes. So
that ties into my big one quite a bit. It led to one of the things I'll be talking about.
Would you like to discuss mummia? I can discuss the origin of the word.
Oh, hit me with that.
So, the people of Europe were fascinated with the substance they referred to as mummia.
Yes.
Now, mummia, the source of all the confusion, was a real substance. Mm-hmm. It was an actual substance that was exuded from a very specific geographic location in the Persian region.
Okay.
From the side of a mountain. From essentially like a black rock asphalt deposit. And it was named for the word for wax, which was mum. And there was a mistranslation of the word mummia way back in the 11th and 12th century. And as a result, people believed that mummia was actually a substance exuded by the bodies of mummified corpses rather than this substance that was harvested and scraped off this very specific mountainside. So it didn't help that many mummies were coated in an asphalt or tar-like substance during the mummification process to preserve the bodies. So when archaeologists / tomb raiders,
truly,
because the beginning of Egyptomania was not archaeology.
No.
It was
thieves.
It was grave robbing.
Thieves.
It was straight grave robbing.
100%.
It was just, we're going in, we're taking what we want. Now, to be fair, the Europeans didn't invent grave robbing. In Egypt, grave robbing had been an issue for all of history, and one of the reasons that so many tombs were so well protected and hidden was because there was constant fear of them being immediately robbed after they were sealed, which happened frequently. So, like, people knew that the wealthy were buried with all of these treasures and all of these resources, and they wanted them because times were tough.
Yeah.
And so
it was a rough time to be alive.
Yeah, but mummia wasn't the key factor in the grave robbing done in historical and ancient Egypt. That was simply for resources, gold, treasures, survival.
Yeah.
The Europeans, on the other hand, had a different idea. So as you can imagine, this led to an entire slew of issues, which we're going to get into now. So
I'm buckling in.
Strap in. Because we're going to talk about the many uses and weird things that occurred when Europeans, specifically British, French, it wasn't limited to France and Great Britain, but they were notorious.
They did a lot of weird stuff.
Yeah.
A lot.
With mummies. And if you're wondering, how did they get the mummies? Well, the old-fashioned way. They stole them.
Yeah.
Or they were exported illegally, or they were purchased
Yeah.
or they were,
By people who stole them.
for lack of a better term, parted out. And
I
used
got some of that too.
in a variety of circumstances and situations. So, I want you to hit me with your first misuse and or bizarre use of a mummy.
Okay.
I'm ready.
So intro with your mummy, right? So
Yeah.
again, picture it. We're in Victorian Europe.
We're here.
You go into your favorite apothecary and see a jar with a mysterious, uniquely toned brown powder,
Suspicious.
perhaps labeled mummia, or the ground remains of mummified ancient Egyptians.
Totally fine.
It was used throughout Europe at the time and was thought to have vast healing properties. Philosophers, physicians, and alchemists alike theorized that consuming minerals used during this process would have medicinal benefits, when in actuality it had horrendous consequences for the majority that consumed them.
Because, reminders, this is ancient desiccated human flesh
Oh, yeah.
treated with a variety of processes meant to preserve the flesh
Yeah.
for all eternity.
Oh, yeah.
And they're drinking it.
And, the practice later, it became mostly abandoned around the 19th century for reasons.
The late 19th century. Not as early as one would think.
But before that, other uses for it had started to gain traction. And it had always been noted for its rich, earthly color. And with no more mummy tea being brewed around the time, mummy brown paint was born.
Oh, I just got weird shivers down my spine.
It was, and there's going to be a local nod in here.
Local?
Minnesota.
Ah!
Oh, yeah.
Ah!
Prepare yourself.
All right, I'm buckled in.
So it was called mummy brown or caput mortuum,
Oh.
meaning deadhead in Latin, or the epitome of decline and decay.
Oh.
It was most commonly mixed with white pitch,
Okay.
which is like a turpentine resin, and myrrh.
Good old myrrh.
Good old myrrh. To produce a raw umber pigment.
Umber, okay.
This pigment was not easily imitated, which even more so increased its popularity.
It's like millennial gray, but it's mummy brown. They're like, this is a unique color. Grind up these ancient bodies.
I feel like that snapped me out of any weirdness.
Millennial gray. Oh, good.
Oh, no.
Yes. I'm never going to look at millennial gray again. I'm going to be like, what's in you?
Oh, my God.
Yeah. How did we come up with this? Because, I always flash back to The Devil Wears Prada, where she's doing that monologue about cerulean blue and how we think. And I'm like, how did we actually get millennial gray? What led to this? Are mummies involved? What do I not know?
Perhaps.
Because as it turns out, I don't know anything.
Dude, it gets even weirder than the intro.
I don't understand.
So, mummy brown had bitumen qualities, meaning it was highly viscous, like petroleum, with a sticky waterproofing finish, like a glaze.
Okay.
Right, so that's hard to imitate because of
very difficult.
all, just the color, the finish, everything.
Dried people.
Yeah. Viscous.
Painted on the walls.
I know.
Okay.
Haunted. Between the 16th and 19th centuries, these mummies, like you said, were dug up and smuggled back to Europe. This trade, while illegal, was highly lucrative.
So much monies.
The mummies were seen as highly coveted souvenirs, not as ancient people. And the mummy trade was exploited by paint firms trying to get their hands on as much supply as they could to grind up and sell to artists.
So who's the guy that gets
Oh,
the
I have
mummy?
names.
Like, here's a
I'm
leg.
calling them out.
Yeah. Like, who's the poor sucker that has to, like, grind up the raw mummies?
Right.
You know?
That was just a big mortar and pestle. I don't know what
was the process
the
here?
exact process was.
Was it like apple cider? Like, what did we do here?
But I admit, someone had to do that. It didn't happen by itself.
Oh,
and I don't know how high-tech the machinery was for these things. I don't think they were sitting there with like a Cuisinart. Like,
probably not.
No. Dark.
Ugh,
Dark.
Yeah.
The paint was especially popular with pre-Raphaelite artists.
For real?
Especially popular.
It's in Masterworks, isn't it?
It is.
No!
And they, for the hummies who don't know, a group of 19th century British artists, poets, and critics who aimed to reform art by rejecting the academic standards by the Renaissance master Raphael. They sought inspiration from art and artists before him, medieval literature, spirituality, nature,
I'm
etc.
sorry.
You're ruining it.
I'm processing right now.
And, they formed a brotherhood.
Like you do.
We're talking about Dante Gabriel Rossetti, William Holman Hunt, John Everett Millay.
Oh my
who
God.
painted Ophelia, the Haunted.
Yeah.
Yeah. Big fan.
Big fan.
Big fan.
I am.
Mummy Brown.
Oh my God.
However, not all artists in the Brotherhood, the pre-Raphaelite, were aware of Mummy Brown's quite literal name.
You mean they didn't know it was made of mummies? They just were like, it's the same brown as the color of a mummy.
Like, what a fun name.
Where I'm like, I'm going to pick this one out because it's cloverleaf green. You know, I'm at Menards.
Like it's made of clovers.
Can you imagine if I go to Menards and I pull it out and I'm like, Mummy Brown, and I bring it to
Someone
the
just
counter
comes out.
And a girl named Stephanie mixes.
Oh, Stephanie.
No.
Yeah.
So,
a painter by the name of Edward Burne-Jones was horrified
when he found out?
When his friend Lawrence Alma Tadema informed him of the true ingredients. He became so distraught upon his discovery that he, along with his wife and young son, held a ceremonial burial for the tube of Mummy Brown in his own garden. His nephew, author Rudyard Kipling.
His nephew was Rudyard Kipling? The Jungle Book?
Later reported. It goes deep.
I wasn't Ricky Tikki Tavi? No.
He was there when it happened.
Wait. Was that the name of that mongoose? Was that the name of the mongoose?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
I just had a full shitbag moment where I was like, did I just make up the name of that mongoose?
Rat bastard. Watch last week's ep.
Look at the old ones. If this is your first episode, I'm sorry for you, but you got to go back in time. Because at this point, the lore is too deep. It's like starting Supernatural in season 5. It's not going to work out for you.
There's too much to go back.
It's too much.
He later reported that Burne-Jones descended in broad daylight with a tube of Mummy Brown in his hand, saying that he had discovered it was made of when he had discovered it was made of dead pharaohs, we must bury it accordingly. So we all went out and helped according to the rites of Mizraim and Memphis, which are Freemason rites.
Oh, sure.
And they fully went out and held a ceremonial burial for this tube of paint.
Spared them from the supposed curses.
Oh, dude. Oh. One of Burne-Jones's most famous works, The Beguiling of Merlin, features hues between burnt and raw umber.
Oh, no.
It is thought that this painting may contain Mummy Brown, especially if it was before his realization of where it was sourced. The testing process required to prove that would likely damage it beyond repair. So the
you'd
truth
have to remove.
Remains a mystery.
Yeah, you'd
right?
have
You'd
to remove
like,
critical.
cut a little chunk or,
Which they do remove now in the interest of history, especially during the preservation process.
The lacquers and stuff.
Lacquers removed. And then if they're curious about the content of a pigment, they will take a pigment sample to determine, especially concern over toxic elements for preservationists.
It's going to eat away at it.
And to go into the historic pigment library, like essentially to maintain the history. The fact that that's a thing.
I love that.
I know.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's like the arc of seeds or whatever, but for art and paint.
Which mean, there's Mummy Brown.
Oh, 100%.
In that lab.
There's no way there's not.
No way there's not.
No. There are other famous works, such as Liberty Leading the People by Eugene Delacroix. Delacroix. Thought to contain Mummy Brown. This painting may be known by fans of Coldplay, as it was used as the album art
cover
for Viva La Vida.
Yep.
Long Live Life.
The irony.
The irony.
Oh my God.
Mummy Brown paint, despite its origins, was so sought after that some was said to be derived from the bodies of London criminals obtained illegally by artists and their cohorts, as the demand was so high.
I did have notes about how it would be problematic if a trade, if you will, in desiccated and mummified bodies became so lucrative that the supply ran out prematurely before the trend, which means, if you were hung, executed, insane, unwanted, also, unloved, and unknown.
What were mummies often buried with besides, belongings and stuff?
Animals.
Those two. The cats.
Not the cats.
I know.
I'm so sorry.
It's a rough one.
It's bad.
By the early 1900s, and I know we'll pop around.
Well, we're bebopping.
Well, we're all over. Time and space. Mummies were becoming nearly impossible to source for this specific purpose.
They ground them up.
Along with the fact that artists were beginning to reckon with the ethical implications of these materials. An excerpt from the St. Paul Globe from January 24th, 1904.
All right.
I'm going to read it for you now.
Here we go.
Ground mummies make good paint. Business of pulverizing defunct Egyptians may cease for lack of supply.
The cultural...
That's the title.
The insensitivity. Wild.
Damn you, St. Paul.
Wild.
Mummy, powdered mummy, makes one of the best and most popular colors used by artists. Every large dealer in oil paints sells powdered mummy, and almost every manufacturer of pigments has a mummy department.
Department?
Where, in a spice-laden atmosphere, amid surroundings picturesque and gruesome, young men and women grind up the dried bodies of Egyptian princesses and priests, mix the powder with poppy oil, and bottle it for the market in little tubes of tin. This business of making paint out of mummies is of long standing, but it is now threatened with destruction, for the supply of mummies is daily growing scarcer. While the demand for them increases, if then, for the benefit of the museums and people of the future, any mummies at all are to be preserved, the commerce in them must at once cease. That is the view which the government of Egypt is taking, and the governments of France and England are supporting her.
I mean, maybe.
I hope. 1904, maybe.
The way I'm looking with disgust at the camera.
I have more past that time frame. In the London and Paris newspapers have appeared of a late number of articles urging the instant prohibition all over the world of the mummy paint industry.
There it is.
Clipping. I'll insert. Real clipping. From the St. Paul Globe.
That's amazing.
1904.
Boy, I reached all the way to good old Minnesota.
I know. I was like, damn.
Mummies.
It was going down. Oh. So, a paint firm called C. Robertson & Co. included mummy brown paint in their artist catalog until 1933. But it is reported that the last tube was made by them in 1964.
What?
A representative for the firm stated, "We might have a few odd limbs lying around somewhere.
Odd limbs?
Not enough to make any more paint. We sold our last complete mummy some years ago for, I think, like €3. He didn't say like.
But like 3.
But like for real. Perhaps we shouldn't have. We certainly can't get any more. Just super like blasé and... Well, there might be an odd arm or something to make some paint.
Also, how much of a mummy does it take to make paint?
I don't know the ratios to resin and myrrh.
Like
poppy oil.
Like a whole mummy makes 1 tube? I don't understand.
I would imagine you'd get more if you spread it.
€3?
€3.
A whole body?
For a person.
Oh, God.
Another representative of this company recalls seeing mummy parts in the shop as late as the 1980s.
I knew it was going to be the 80s. They're all coked up in there playing with mummy arms.
When the company was bought out.
I knew it! You knew everything always went till the 80s.
Dude.
Then they were like, oh, crap, people are starting to pay attention. we should probably... They're all just like, we got to get rid of these body parts.
Because everyone could, like, smell colors.
They're like, there's a mummy in here.
Oh, my God. Today, thankfully, Mummy Brown is no longer produced.
Well, good.
From the mummified remains of ancient Egyptian people. Oh, modern formulas use a mixture of minerals to replicate its distinctive color and finish because science.
Huzzah!
So if you should ever happen to see a Victoria era painting that has colors of raw or burnt umber, or with a rich and earthy reddish brown quality, you may just be looking at a corpse on canvas.
Wow. Yeah. That changes things a little bit.
Just mixed them right up.
That's weird.
It's real weird. And that was one of the shocking things.
Pre-Raphaelites.
As we joke that you are Ron Swanson.
I know more than you.
That was one thing where I got to feel like that guy from National Treasure with Nicolas Cage, where he's like, I know something about history that you don't know. When he knew the thing about Ben Franklin.
Yeah, when she was like, so mummy brown paint, and I'm like, what are you talking about? Which is ironic because we talk about lore all the time and how, like, we'll just drop the most insane lore on each other that you would think after some years we would already know. I did a brief stint as an art history major / art studio art major and had no idea.
Never came up?
It never came up. It never came up. Even one
Big
time.
art cover up.
Yep. University art cover up is what it was.
Yeah. They don't want to talk about the ugly truths.
No.
People.
Not really.
Think of how many great works of art.
I wish I had known about Mummy Brown during my stint as an art history major because
you would have gone in.
My advisor / professor's husband is an archaeologist / Egyptologist who at the time that
they would have known.
At the time that I was in her program was excavating a tomb in Saqqara.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and there was a political upheaval and he had to flee in the night.
Oh, Jesus.
To protect his life. Yeah, because the tomb was robbed by armed individuals.
You make it out?
He made it out.
Okay.
Yeah, he was alive. And this was in...
Well, obviously, he told you that story.
This was in 2008?
Scheiße.
Yeah, so thereabouts.
Yeah.
So, but no, not a mention. Not a mention of the Mummy Brown.
Yeah.
And
Wild. Just crazy.
And that was only one thing they did with the mummy.
One thing.
So...
I have another really weird one.
So, before we get into the next really weird one.
Yes.
We need a tiny little history break. Famous mummies.
Yes.
Right? So, there's some mummies that everyone knows about. Right? And of course, who is the most famous mummy of all time?
King Tut.
Absolutely. Hands down. The most famous. Because because the tomb was intact.
Yes.
So it had not been robbed.
Many a documentary.
Yep. Many a curse hypotheses.
Yeah.
Perhaps one of the strongest and persistent curse mythos that has ever been generated out of Egypt's mummy scene. So everybody knows all about him. I'm not talking about King Tut. I'm not doing it. My current favorite mummy.
Ooh.
Yeah. Which I had seen his face. I had seen his visage several times, but didn't really research him or put anything together about him. Is good old Ramses II.
Ooh.
And Ramses II is famous because, first of all, he most likely lived until he was in his 90s.
What?
Yeah.
90s?
90s. Unheard of. Right?
That would be like a wizard.
Yep.
Everyone was like 30.
Yeah, when they discovered his mummy, he was one of Egypt's greatest pharaohs. As far as duration of reign and influence on the cultural and historical continuation and the narrative.
The wisdom.
And so apparently when he died, he was in his 90s. Based on the assessment of the height of his mummy, which was 5'8", they think that in his prime, he was probably substantially taller than people at the time because he had shrunk, not only due to the mummification process, but because of age. Yeah. So they were like, he was probably well over 6 feet tall.
Damn.
Also,
he's like a giant old man.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy.
Also famous as a mummy because he had red hair. The mummy has, and to this day, the mummy has existing red hair on its head. Now,
how?
How? So there
aliens,
right? Aliens. So there were for a long time a lot of hypotheses about why Ramses II had red hair, and of course, people of a specific geopolitical persuasion were like, "This is evidence that white people were in Egypt." No, it was not. So as it turns out, there are a couple different ways that a mummy could end up with red hair. First and foremost, obviously the mummy, the person could have had red hair.
Yeah.
Second, if the corpse is exposed to the elements, whether that's UV or whatever, that could change the color of the hair after the melanin leaches out of the hair. Yeah. However, Ramses II was interred. He wasn't found in the open air. Right, so his mummy wasn't protected. Exposed to the elements in UV for that process to happen.
How long was the hair?
Not particularly long. Okay. Yeah, relatively close cropped, short hair.
But noticeably yes. Oh, he got red hair.
And he is a fascinating mummy because the individuals that mummified him played particular care to maintaining the facial structure of his mummy because he has very distinctive facial features. And the facial features of the mummy match that of the existing statues and portraiture of Ramses II. So in order to maintain, he had a very, very specifically shaped nose.
Okay.
And so when he was mummified, they actually put seeds and stones and items in his face to keep the structure so that when the flesh was desiccating, it wouldn't collapse down and ruin the shape of his face. So he has one of the most human, amazing faces of a mummy.
Oh, gee. And red hair.
It's incredibly gaunt.
Yeah.
Yeah, and no shade on Bill Nighy, but imagine Bill Nighy as a mummy, which doesn't take a lot of work. I love Bill Nighy. It's just Captain Davy Jones without the tentacles, all right? But as it turns out, science determined that the mummy's hair was actually dyed with henna. And that as he aged, it is believed that Ramses II routinely had his hair dyed to maintain his original color. Mm-hmm. And there is documentation that both Ramses II and Seti I, his father, both had what was considered auburn hair. Yeah. But it has been, they have not proven whether or not their auburn hair was natural. Mm-hmm. Or if they did something to alter the pigment of their hair, because red hair and auburn hair in Egypt at the time was considered adjacent to God, to Ra, and to all of the pantheon. So it was considered yet another layer of the divinity of the pharaohs and the kings of the time.
Well, I mean, damn, you're way older,
super old.
than anyone else around you. Way taller. The king of everything.
Yep.
And hair like a god.
And
well into your 90s.
And I think one of the most fascinating things about the discovery of this mummy is that it should have been found a lot earlier than it was. However, it is a long and convoluted tale that I will shorten down. So scientists believe that Ramses II and his father Seti I did indeed most likely have naturally occurring auburn or reddish bronze hair. They know this because they also found Seti I's mummy and approximately 40 other mummies all together in a cache of mummies. They were found by a family. Now, again, when you want to find weird stuff from ancient times, who do you follow? The goats and the pigs. And the sheep. So
they be going in those caves, man.
In the 1870s, the Abd el-Rasul family was a family of sheep herds and goat herds. The local family lived in the area around Luxor. And at the time, Ahmed, who was one of the goat herds from the family in 1871, lost one of his goats and heard it crying and went in search of it. And the local population was completely aware that the hills were riddled with shafts and tombs and all kinds of stuff. And so he fully believed that his goat was lost and that it had maybe fallen and broken its leg and he was trying to recover it.
Yeah.
And so a historian of the time wrote that Ahmed found, after searching for his goat and entering down into a shaft that was discovered on the outskirts of the village area near Luxor, at least 40 dusty coffins, mummified bodies preserved inside, stretched as far as he could see, cartouches inscribed on their lids, and bright blue, I'm going to say this wrong, faience ushabtis, a.k.a. servant statues with inscriptions from unknown kings, royal cobras, canopic jars, funerary equipment, and more. So the goat led him, by accident, to a completely undiscovered tomb. Now, the thing is...
could you imagine? You're just out with Foxy.
Yeah. She's like, what do you got, girl? She brings back a limb.
She's not like, great. I found an army of mummies. Holy shit.
Here's the thing. Ahmed kept it secret. So, 1870s, he and his family realized... Again, Ahmed. Think of the timing. The 1870s.
Oh, dude.
The height.
He could have been a millionaire.
He knew that. He didn't tell anyone. His family as a whole decided that they were going to quietly begin selling off items from the cache of mummies. Eventually, authorities became suspicious because there was a sudden influx of royal era antiquities on the market.
They're all coming from one family.
And the mummies, they were the mummies and
they've gotten
treasures.
So many new sheep.
Yep. Treasures from kings, priests, family members from up to 3 dynasties.
Dude.
The reason they were all together is because at some point in the past, in order to protect the mummies of the pharaohs and to prevent them from being destroyed during a particularly dangerous rash of tomb robbings, the mummies had actually been dug up, rewrapped, and interred as a whole in a new location. So that was the reason why they had never been found, because Valley of the Kings had already been raided. Like, people knew of the Valley of the Kings. It had basically been, like, once-overed.
Yeah.
By all of the people that were searching for these mummies. And so the fact that they had been moved and evidence of the rewrapping to continue to preserve them was why they were not discovered. So the official, quote-unquote, discovery of Ramses II and all of the other mummies is in 1881. That's when it lists as this family, when it was discovered by history and science, essentially. Yeah. So
the world.
The way they found this out, well, the government of Egypt was unhappy with the behavior of the El-Rasul family. And under interrogation, a member of the family, interrogation, wink, gave up the location of the cache of mummies. Egyptians, led by Emil Bruch, entered DB 320 in 1881 and were stunned. Inside of the tomb, they found the mummies, including Ramses II, Seti I, his father, Thutmosis III, Ahmose I, several queens, princes, and high priests. The mummies had been moved there by the 21st dynasty priests during the Third Intermediate Period, which is about 1000 BCE, to protect them from tomb robbers. Rewrapped, relabeled, and sealed all together in one shaft. So it was like a, holy crap, they're robbing all of the tombs of our pharaohs. We are moving them quickly to save them. We're stuffing them in this hole. They are lost.
Damn.
So how did they identify Ramses II?
Yeah.
First of all, he was labeled. Very handy. Very handy, right? It's Ramses, right? There he is. Also, the height was a dead giveaway because apparently 5'7" to 5'8" at the time, incredibly tall. Yeah. And since he had shrunk with age, they were like, he was taller. Yeah. Apparently his very distinct nose, which was visible on all of the statues that were from Ramses II.
Well, because there was obviously evidence of him before they found him.
Because he was a pharaoh for decades.
Yeah.
Also, he still had the hair.
Fantastic.
And then later CT scans and x-rays in the 20th century confirmed age-related changes that matched Ramses II's known age since he died at such an elderly age. So apparently the state of his teeth and joints were abhorrent. Like they were like, this man was in terrible pain.
My dude had terrible arthritis.
Also, bonus factoid about Ramses II. I'm pretty sure the only deceased Egyptian pharaoh to ever be issued a passport. Yeah. So, in order to preserve him...
Did they take a picture of it?
I haven't seen the passport, but I'm pretty sure they did.
I think you have to have a picture of the passport.
If there is a picture, it's going right here.
It's going right here. We're going to find it.
So prep yourself.
Yes.
So, in 1976... the Egyptian government, concerned about the poor preservation of Ramses II's mummy in the past, because we all know, despite what some preservationists want you to believe, they don't always use best practices.
No.
They decided to fly him to Paris for preservation treatment because there were multiple experts that were substantially more skilled than the preservationists that were using techniques at the time. Mm-hmm. So the Egyptian government was like, we want to send him to Paris. Apparently, the French government requires remains, I don't know how this works exactly, to have a passport.
That's so bizarre.
So the Egyptian government issued Ramses II a passport. His occupation is labeled on the passport as king, deceased, in parentheses. Yep. He was greeted with military honors in France.
Oh.
And so this was the first mummy to ever be treated like this.
That's fucking rad.
And they have preserved him.
Damn.
He is in fantastic shape to this day and looks essentially unchanged from when he was discovered. So the fact that Ramses II and also his existence now and the improvement of technology, because, and we'll get into this a little bit later, because after we talk a little bit more about the insanity of Victorian Europe and the mummies, I want to talk about, and I will be talking about, the ramifications of Egyptomania today. Because, my God, it's going on as we speak. There's hot goss from April 2025. I cannot
It is now.
Because as Brooke knows, what is the name I like to randomly say? Dr. Zahiwas. We're getting into it.
I didn't hear the doctor part when we walked in.
We were warming up earlier.
Like, are you casting a spell on me?
Because, you got to get used to your mic. And you got to get the weirds out, right, before you start recording. So I was like, Dr. Zahiwas. Zahiwas. And she was like, are you casting a spell?
I was setting up the camera and I'm like, ah. And you're like, why are you being weird? You're over here like speaking in tongues in the corner.
She was like, Jesus Christ. I'm like, oh, sorry. Prominent Egyptologist, Dr. Zahiwas. My bad.
Oh, God.
So that is the tale of Ramses II.
That's
my
amazing.
current favorite mummy.
Might be mine now as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
I love that he just had like luxurious auburn hair.
Yeah. The hair.
And was just a giant old man.
Giant old man. And when you see the pictures, you'll be like, wow, that is exactly
We're going to put him in right here.
what I thought he was going to look like.
I have an image in my mind, and I think I've seen photos.
I think
When you said red hair,
when you see this picture, you'll be like, I've seen that mummy before.
When you said red hair, it triggered
If you've
something.
watched a fake Egypt special or any episode of Ancient Aliens, I'm sure they've inserted Ramses II's face multiple times.
Why was he so tall? Aliens.
Ancient alien theorists say no, they
The amount
don't. They
of
don't.
ancient alien memes I'm gonna have to put in this episode.
I can't. Also, sidebar. All right.
Sidebar.
In preparation for this episode, because now my FYP is just destroyed with Egyptology. The amount of fake videos that are produced on TikTok on the regular about history, like the absolute utter trash bullshit that is put into videos and then seen and shared by literally millions of people. The Cleopatra one sent me right over the edge. I sent her a reel that was a fake discovery of Cleopatra's tomb, and it's a picture of a real fantastic Egyptologist who is currently actively working in Alexandria, or the historic site of the city of Alexandria, and attempting to find the location of Cleopatra's tomb, if it does indeed exist. And this woman is a powerhouse. She is brilliant. She is amazing. She has uncovered layers of the city of Alexandria that were previously never touched under existing city.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Some idiot took a snapshot of her in front of an open tomb and was like, Cleopatra famously said no man would ever find her tomb, and no man has. It's been discovered by a woman. And I'm like, for God's sake, do not, ruin the importance of this woman's work uncovering this extremely delicate history to slap your stupid meme-ass bullshit.
Celebrate the real things that women do, not the made up. The fact that there's so many of those videos too that are bot accounts and are just AI videos.
Is this that Oracle of Delphi thing I brought up? That whole fountain thing, the waters have never, it's not a thing, right? It's just an internet rumor thing that was going, it's the same thing. It just drives me. And then the most recent Egypt one that was going around is, have you seen what they discovered under the Great Pyramids of Giza? That bullshit, like there's an ancient machine built under, no there is fucking not. All right?
There was electricity in there, man.
No.
It was a spaceship, man. Yeah, I've seen all of
But
hurts.
people believe it.
Yeah.
They believe it. They're like, well, if somebody made a video about it and put it on TikTok, oh my God. I'm like,
Must be true.
for God's sake.
No. And I obviously have fallen victim.
Right. But it's the whole like, okay,
When you search something or talk to someone else about it and they're like, do what? Girl, get it together.
Well, and I saw that
That's
video
what you
about
need.
Cleopatra's tomb and I was like, ain't no way.
No. First of all,
Ain't
that
no
would be
way. It wasn't-
international news.
Yeah.
You wouldn't find out about it on TikTok
No.
or Instagram.
Also, the way Dr. Zahi Hawass would be all over that shit, which I don't necessarily, I'll get into it. I don't necessarily, I don't want to make it, if I make an enemy of Dr. Zahi Hawass the way I have probably made an enemy of Scott Walter, flashback to the first season, everybody, I would end up black bagged. I would be gone. He'd disappear me. I'd go into the sands of the desert and never be found. There's no way. There's no way.
No.
I will not cross that man ever for any reason. He terrifies me.
Like that.
Terrifies me.
No.
I would upset Victor
Putting
Vescovo.
them on
Also,
me.
check season 2. I would upset Victor Vescovo before I would upset Dr. Zahi Hawass.
And he has crazy eyes.
The craziest of eyes. I never want to upset him, even from afar, even in the ether.
He'll put you in the deep.
Never to be seen again.
Ah! Oh, no.
So that's the story of Ramses II.
Jesus.
And my rant about Tim Tams.
I love that.
I want to talk about more weird stuff mummies have done.
Fuck yeah.
All right.
Here, we'll start. Curiously long life for a common god and rat. Sorry.
Big skirt.
Big skirts.
Like that. Being eaten by crocodiles in the underworld. Being erased from history. Or suffering in the realm of the dead without end.